Investors taking a second look at solar power. I'm joined by Benjamin Cohen, CEO of T-Rex. Nice to have you here.
Great to be here, Rhonda.
You are right now working on deals for commercial securitizations in solar. In the past, there have been deals on the residential side. So why now are we seeing some renewed interest?
The solar asset class on the whole, if you can even call it that because it's so small, is particularly interesting to investors because you have these long-term yielding cash flows once the assets are already built, and you don't have the risk of construction and anything that can go wrong there. And if you can quantify that risk and investors can understand the risk, then there's a whole bunch of yield that is attractive and difficult to find in other asset classes now.
Typically, what kind of yield are we talking about?
For investment grade pieces, we look anywhere in the 3.5% to 5% range, and as a spread that can be 200 to 300 over comparable treasuries.
Is it just about yield, or is it more than that?
It's a really good question. Yield, we as a platform at T-Rex are trying to put solar and renewable energy in general on par with other asset classes. But I think as you're alluding to, you also get the benefit of contributing to something that's bigger than that. If your dollars are producing the same returns that you'd be getting for comparable risk in other asset classes, and you're making the world a better place, it's a good thing to go home and tell your family about.
What is the outlook, do you think, for renewable energy? I mean, one problem from the investment perspective, and we saw it more on the equity side, not the debt side, was, of course, this bubble that we had a few years ago in solar. So I don't know if that also translated over to some concerns on the debt side.
It's a great question, and it's actually, it's often a mistake that people make that has actually been good for our industry. So you had this huge blow up with companies like Solyndra, and it was all over the front pages. And that was actually good for the industry because it showed a consolidation. It was a commoditization of things like panel technology. And now the government has been putting tariffs on Chinese solar panels, which is difficult for everybody else in the industry. It's not great for panel manufacturers, but just like any other technology, when it becomes commoditized, it goes to the lowest cost producer, and that's great for everybody else. The SolarCities of the world, Elon Musk, the chairman of SolarCity, has done 3 different securitizations, mostly on the residential side. They benefit from lower panel prices. Then all of that benefits for things like securitization on the debt side when we're taking these assets that are, again, de-risked because we know what the technology is like, and we don't have to worry about comparing different technologies or technologies becoming obsolete over time. So
could we be now on a different kind of growth trajectory if these deals were able to get done and there's some real interest in them?
Absolutely. I think that we're on the brink of a new asset class coming out. And this is not novel. We went from technology, as we just discussed. As technology comes down in price, you get more and more development, and development hits its inflection point once you get into independent financial market mechanisms. And that's where we are now. We are trying to drive a market where there are subsidy-free installations, which can then be translated to investors, and once much broader sources of capital come into the market, then, as you're suggesting, we will have potentially meteoric growth across the industry.
It's got to help when someone like Elon Musk is, getting involved. I mean, there's got to be some cachet toward that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And the nice thing about it is, he's got cachet, he's got star power as a modern mogul, but he's also not stupid. He knows exactly what he's investing in, and he doesn't put money after bad projects. And on top of that, he sort of made the whole thing open source. He said, look, here's what we did well, and it even ties back into the finance side. He created these solar leases, which we are now able to securitize, and that was the very beginning of this new age of finance for solar and being able to introduce it to institutional investors.
Benjamin Cohen, great speaking with you.
Great speaking with
Thanks
you too,
so
Rhonda.
much.
Thank you.
I'm Rhonda Schaffler for The Street.